Hello there, my name is Hido and welcome to the Pantheon, where today there's something rather horrible and a bit menacing bubbling to the surface. Oh my goodness, it's Slogurk, the Overslime. Overly slimy? Well, that's me in a nutshell. 3 mana for an ooze 3/3 with trample and a lot of text. Whenever a land is put into your graveyard from anywhere, put a 1/1 counter on Slogurk, the Overslime. Remove 3 1/1 counters from Slogurk, return it to its owner's hand. So a nice bit of, retrieval, and we get to save our commander there, which is pretty good. And then when it leaves the battlefield, return up to 3 target land cards from your graveyard to your hand. Really quite an interesting card, isn't it? It does all sorts of different things, but mainly it's a land-based commander, which is, pretty cool. And, especially in green-blue, I'm so used to seeing, like, green-blue value engines where all you do is draw lands, well, draw cards, which is usually lands, and then you play the lands, that draws you more cards. This, at least, you're playing around with a graveyard and doing all sorts of fanciful things like that. So it's really quite a nice new direction for green-blue to go in, or at least slightly interesting. So, without further ado, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Woohoo! I'm going to be making videos like this for every single legendary commander, so please come along and join me. And now, let's have a look at the top 5 for our gooey friend. In at number 5, what have we got? Well, he cares about lands, and I care about cycling. So, Lonely Sandbar, it's a land that has cycling, and this is the sort of key building block of the deck for me. Cycling, obviously the best mechanic ever printed, discard a card, the draw a card, and just for a single blue on the sandbar here. But because it's a land, it's going to trigger our commander, get the counts on our commander. We're going to sift through the deck, then when he leaves the battlefield, and we've got a couple of ways to trigger that. We're going to be, getting this back. We can draw more cards. It's fantastic. And, worst comes to the worst, you just play this from your graveyard as a land. What an absolute disaster. Another great cycling land is Remote Isle, the 2 mana cycle, where it's 2 generic mana to cycle them, and it comes in taps for a blue. So infinitely worse in every way, but you can use generic mana, and just having a lot of cycling lands is important for the deck. However, they all do come in tapped, apart from Blasted Landscape, I think it's called, which is the colorless cycle land which comes in untapped. Whew. My knowledge coming into the forefront there. Then, this is all a lot of lands that, have sacrifice effects that we can rebuy with Slogurk, play it again, get the effect again. And Litjara Mirror Lake is a great one. Into the battlefield taps for a blue, and you pay 5 green and a blue, being the colour mana. Sacrifice it, creates tokens a copy of target creature you control, except it enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it. Activate this ability only any time you can cast a sorcery. That sorcery, like Rider there, really makes it suck, but we're going to have quite a few cool creatures in the deck, so we can get some excellent use out of this. Trigger it into the battlefield effect, and then we can just rebuy it with our commander. Then there's Waterlogged Grove. Logged it. And you can pay 1 life to either add a green or a blue. Not that big of an issue in Commander, as we've got 40 life. And then pay 1, tap it, sacrifice it, draw a card. So filter through the deck. Absolutely wonderful. Really, really gets you to the key cards you want. It's very similar to the cycling lands, except it's not got cycling, so it's actually worse in every conceivable way. Then the Cephalid Colosseum, which uses Threshold, which means you have to have 7 cards in your graveyard. And in this deck, we're really going to be aiming for that. And it's quite easy to get 7 cards with all of the sort of self-mill that we've got. So this card is brilliant. It taps for a blue, and it deals 1 damage to you. Or Threshold, pay a blue, tap it and sacrifice it. Target player draws 3 cards and then discards 3 cards from his or her hand. Amazing. The filtering on that is phenomenal. And if any lands hit the graveyard, obviously we're going to be sacrificing this, but any lands that you discard are going to trigger our commander again, get those counters to bounce it back to our hand. Amazing. Or we can just grow our commanders to be enormous and swing in for lethal damage. Then, oh no, I've messed it all up. What's going on here? Oh, I understand. It's Scorched Ruins. Scorched Ruins is a land. It comes into play, sacrifice 2 untapped lands you control. not the best, but you catch for 4 colourless mana to your mana pool. So that just fills up the graveyard. Our commander sees it, grows bigger, and then we can use this to tap for mana, get the lands back with our commander on other ways. Just a brilliant, brilliant land. And you can, there's a couple of cool things you can do with this card, in terms of untapping things and, tapping for more mana. Then Ghost Quarter, excellent bit of removal. People don't like having the lands removed, but sometimes it just has to be done. You're playing against a Glacial Chasm deck, and they're just sitting there laughing, going, ha, 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 you can't kill me. You go, well, okay, I'll Ghost Quarter it. Have a basic, you're now dead. But I think it's very important to put cards like this in your deck. And the cool thing about this is, yes, it is removal for opponent's lands, but we can use this on our own lands. To get a land onto the battlefield, get 2 lands into the graveyard to buy back with Slogurk, get those counters on him, swing in for lethal damage. Just tons and tons of use for this card. And it enters untapped, which is fantastic. Which brings me on to my number 4 pick, and at number 4, ways to get lands and lands into the graveyard specifically. So Realms Uncharted, I love this card. I love the flavour of it. I love the fact that it's like a colour-shifted version of the blue one. Gifts Ungiven. I wish that card was legal in Commander. Come on, guys. It's not that bad. And then it's fantastic. 3 mana for an instant. Search your library for 4 land cards with different names and reveal them. An opponent chooses 2 of those cards, put the chosen cards into your graveyard and the rest into your hand, then shuffle your library. Really, with our commander on the field, yes, our commander's going to grow, but we just return it back to our hand. We've tutored 4 lands into our hand. I mean, you could get Merit Lage, Dark Depths, Thespian Stage, all sorts of fun cards to be playing with, or at least with not so much against. But this is something that you can do. It searches for anything. It's brilliant. It's at instant speed. I love it. It works fantastically with the deck. Then we've got a lot of lands in our graveyards. Well, Life from the Loam is a brilliant way to buy them back. 2 mana sorcery. Returns to 3 target lands from your graveyard to your hand. And then, as this section's all about filling your graveyard, we've got Dredge 3. Dredge, basically, if this card's in your graveyard, and you would draw a card, instead mill that many cards. And you get this back into your hand. So this is an engine that sort of generates itself, especially, with the cycling lands. The best lands ever printed, in my opinion. The dual lands have nothing on them. But this is incredible. Absolutely fantastic. And if you cycle at instant speed, because you can, best mechanic ever, you can get this back, dredge it back, and you can just keep the engine going. It's phenomenal. Then, brand new card, Wrenn and 7. 6 died. 5 mana for a 5-letter Planeswalker, +1, reveal the top 4 cards of your library, put all land cards reveal this way into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. Very awesome. When I first started playing, this is a card called Mulch. 2 mana to do that exact thing, so if you want to put that in the deck, you can. But it's just phenomenal. Attached to a Planeswalker, who also pays 0, put any number of land cards from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. Incredible with the returning lands from Slogurk. What the hell's this? Slogurk? What's this thing called? The Ooze. Anyway, -3 creates a green Treefolk creature token with reach, and this creature's power times it's equal to the number of lands you control. It's going to be colossal. We're going to have a ton of lands. We're playing green. We've got lots of ramp. The deck is based around lands. I'd aim to put about maybe 40 lands into this deck. And then finally, -8, return all permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. You get an emblem with, you have no maximum hand size. So we've filled up our graveyard, and then we just bring them all back. Amazing value. Then, tutoring for specific lands is incredibly powerful, so Elvish Reclaimer is brilliant. 1 green for an Elf Warrior. It has 2/2 as long as there's 3 or more land cards in your graveyard. Pretty easy to get in this deck. And pay 2, tap, sacrifice a land. Search your library for a land card, put it into the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Just get that silver bullet land that you really need to progress your game plan. Then, an old classic here. I love this fella. Satyr Wayfinder, 2 mana 1/1 Satyr. When it's the battlefield, reveal the top 4 cards of your library, and then you may put a land card from among them onto your hand. Into. It goes within the hand. Then put the rest into your graveyard. So you mill 3, get the land, or mill 4. What a disaster. Still trigger our commander, maybe. If you don't want the lands in your hand. This does so much work for a 2 mana body, and it's just incredible. It replaces itself. Then there's the Mending of Dominaria. 5 mana for a Saga. 1 and 2, mill 2 cards, then you may return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So absolutely fantastic. Yes, we want to be milling our lands, but we're going to be milling creatures possibly that we could put in the deck. State of Wayfinder, we're getting back, we mill some more. And then, you know, just generates value. And then the final level, level 3, return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, then shuffle your graveyard into your library. That's pretty good. That is pretty goddamn solid. Getting all the lands that we've milled over with, you know, all sorts of different things will be phenomenal and set up for a massive turn. And if you're playing some landfall sort of cards, this will be amazing because it'll trigger them all at the same time. Finally, we've got Cavalier of Thorns, 5 mana for a 5/6 with Reach Elemental Knight. Enter the battlefield, reveal the top 5 cards of your library, put a land card from among them onto the battlefield, and the rest into your graveyard. So it does say to Wayfinder's job better, but then we are paying 5 mana, so it, you know, bloody better do. So it ramps you straight there, and then you get a 5/6. Pretty good. Then when it dies, you may exile it if you do. Put another target card from your graveyard on top of your library. So you set up your next draw, you know what you're going to get. And if you know you're cycling through cards and stuff like that, you're going to draw it this turn. But that is a great enter the battlefield effect, isn't it? Why don't, you know, we use that sort of thing, especially because our commander's abilities, whenever it leaves play, it's not dies or anything like that. So we could maybe flicker it or bounce it back to our hand with a Chain of Vapor. 1 blue for an instant, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Then that permanent's controller may sacrifice a land. If that player does, he or she may copy that spell and you may choose new targets for that copy. Why is this good? Well, because our commander triggers whenever it leaves. So we bounce our commander. Or, you know, someone's going to wipe the board, one of our opponents. Well, okay, we'll bounce this creature. We'll copy it, sacrifice a land. Our commander will get slightly bigger. Then another thing, you know, get all the lands into the graveyard, and then we'll finally return our commander and bounce, boing, all of the lands come back into our hand. And this is just a great card, you know, someone's swinging in with a lethal infect creature, something like that, boink, bounce it, amazing. So many different uses for this card, and it's just 1 blue, and it works so incredibly well with our commander. Similarly, I hinted at, you know, some flicker effects, and Teferi's Time Twist is wonderful. 2 mana for an instant, exile target permanent you control. Return that card to the battlefield under its own control at the beginning of the next end step. If it enters the battlefield as a creature, it enters with an additional 1/1 counter on it. So our commander leaves, we get the lands back to our hand, our commander comes back in, it's already got one of the 1/1 counters it needs to return itself back to our hand, and, you know, start maybe a little chain going. So this can be phenomenal. Then Ghostly Figure. Flicker, 3 mana for an instant, exile 2 target artifact creatures and or lands you control. Then return those cards to the battlefield under your control. Brilliant, just works fantastically with our commander. Boink, boink, boink. Flickers them in and out. We can flicker, you know, something else, a land, something like that. Trigger a couple of different effects. The really cool thing with this is all those landfall triggers I was talking about, well, you can just flicker 2 lands if you really want to with this card. Get a ton of different effects. Great card. Then there's Essence Flux. 1 blue for an instant, exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. If it's a spirit, you get a 1/1 counter on it. Well, our commander's news, so we're not going to get the counter. But, you know, God loves a trier, doesn't he? Which brings me on to Master Biomancer. At the number 2 spot. 4 mana for an elf wizard. Oh god, a big moth's just come into the room. Oh, go away. Anyway, the show must go on. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with a number of additional 1/1 counters on it equals a Master Biomancer's power. And there's a mutant in addition to its other types. So, why is this card? The whole point of this card and cards like it is our commander wants 1/1 counters on it when it enters the battlefield. So, we can then use it to bounce it straight back. So, if this is a... Christ, it's massive. If this is a 2/4, our commander enters with 2 1/1 counters on it, which is, you know, pretty goddamn decent. And then we just need to get a single one from, like, cycling a land, having sacrificing a land, something like that. Which brings me on to other cards that are similar to this, like Boreal Outrider. 3 mana for an Elf Warrior 3/2. Whenever you cast a creature spell, if a snow mana, so if you're playing this deck, you play a lot of snow sort of basics, was spent to cast it, that creature enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it. So Slogurk already has a 1/1 counter to build up to that 3 that we need. Then this isn't an enter the battlefield sort of thing, but Tyrant Sanctum is a great land for the deck. Attach for a colorless, comes in untapped, and pay 2 and tap it. Target legendary creature becomes a god. In addition to its other types, put a 1/1 counter on it. So there we go, there's the 1/1 counter that can enable Slogurk to bounce up and down. And then pay 4, tap, and sacrifice it, put an indestructible counter on target god. So we could make Slogurk indestructible, you know, if we're really going massive on him. If he's maybe a 20/20, which is, you know, distinctly possible in his ooze-based deck, we could possibly swing in for massive amounts of damage and make him indestructible. Finally, we got metallic mimic. Christ, that moth thing messed me up. 2 mana for a 2/1 shapeshifter. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. So I'm going to choose ooze right now. It is the chosen type in addition to its other types. Each other creature you control is of the chosen type enter the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it. So Slogurk comes in with that 1/1 counter. And then, while we're playing oozes, you know, our commander's an ooze. Let's play some more oozes. Gigantic ooze. 3 mana for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 green ooze creature token. At the beginning of your round step, put a 1/1 counter on each other ooze, or each ooze you control, so it's all oozes. And then a nice mana sink here for all that mana we're going to be making. 4 mana, create a 2/2 green ooze creature token. So this gets the counters everywhere, you know, Slogurk's growing, he's bouncing, we're doing all sorts of fanciful things. Then Oran Reef Ooze, 3 mana for a 2/2. Enter the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Could be itself, could be our commander. Then whenever it attacks, put a 1/1 counter on each attacking creature with a 1/1 counter on it. Really, really nice. Buffs up our commander, gets in. Our commander has trample, so really nice there. Then finally we got Biowaste Blob. 4 mana for a 0/0. Oozes you control get +1/+1, so it grows our commander. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control a commander, create a token that's a copy of Biowaste Blob. So, first turn, we get 2 of them. Then each of them makes 1, so we have 4, 8. Just keeps growing exponentially, and our commander will get bigger and bigger with it. Which brings me on to number 1. And at number 1, this was a fan submission. I'm very, very sad to say I missed this on the first go around, but what a great card in the deck it is. Mind over matter. 6 mana for an enchantment. Choose and discard a card. Tap or untap, target artifact, creature, or land. Okay, so why is this good in the deck? Usually this is good with, you know, a lot of untap effects, things like that, so we can tap and untap. Well, the cool thing about Slogurk is when it returns to our hand using its ability, we will get back 3 lands, or just 3 cards that we can discard. You can see that, can't you? That thing that just flickered across. That's that monster that's been attacking me. Anyway, when Slogurk returns the 3 lands, we discard the 3 cards to untap 3 lands. And then we can recast Slogurk, you know, cycle some more, do some other things, get the cards back. It just, it's so good. It just works perfectly. And while we're looping these sort of things, cards like Turn Timber Sower are amazing. 3 mana for a 3/3 Elf Druid. Whenever 1 or more land cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, create a 0/1 green plant creature token. So every time we get a land from anywhere, boom, we're going to have a body, nice blocker, nice sacrifice fodder, because there's a pay green, sacrifice 3 creatures. Return target land from your graveyard to your hand. So it does a little impression of our commander there, and it just is brilliant and just a nice bit of redundancy. Then the Scholar Grove Dancer. 2 mana for a 2/2. Whenever land is put into your graveyard from anywhere, you gain 1 life. Pay 3, put the top card of your library into your graveyard. So a nice little bit of recursive mill that we could, you know, pump mana into. Finally, we've got Crawling Sensation. 3 mana for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. Whenever 1 or more land cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, for the first time each turn, now that sucks, but you get a 1/1 green insect creature token onto the battlefield. So, you know, if we've got the cycling lands or just anything that we can sack, this could potentially get us a 1/1 on each turn. It's really, really nice. And those are my top 5 cards. God, I've lost my mind. 5 cards for this commander. It's really, really cool, you know. It's a different direction for green-blue, and that I enjoy. I like it when you can take a deck in a sort of different direction. So it's quite fun. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. I'm going to try and destroy that thing that entered the room. And I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.